somebody take away from me.
Hey folks, Happy New Year.
I got
Welcome
it.
back to Big Dork Energy. It's Nitro, back to talk about G.T.F.O.
Oh my god.
Back in mid-August of 2022, we released a video giving a brief rundown on why 10 Chambers' intense title, G.T.F.O, was a must-have game.
Guys on the right.
As it was the first of our why you should play style videos, it covered the basics and went through what got myself and the rest of the lads here at BDE hooked. I've been meaning to do a follow-up for a while, going into a little more detail about what to expect from this game, while we also go over what has changed in this time, and what to expect in the future. As this video is intended to help you, the viewer, decide whether it's the right game for you, I'm also going to throw in a little bit of layman's advice for beginners as we go. If you're still not convinced, and don't mind spoilers, we have a playthrough running the first few expeditions of Rundown 7. You can find that linked in the top right corner, the description, and at the end of the video. As always, we appreciate any support, and we'd just be over the moon if you hit that subscribe button and follow us for the wide array of content we hope to provide. There have been some big changes to the game since our original video, and the first and foremost is the fact that the developers are going to release at least one more rundown. These rundowns are basically seasons containing new expeditions, weapons, enemies, and often entirely new game mechanics and challenges. What's really interesting though, is until now, each time one of these rundowns drops, the previous rundown disappears to be forever cataloged under previous traumas. Now, they've begun reviving these old rundowns one by one, with some changes. So far, they've re-released the alt versions of Rundowns 1 and 2, the third most likely dropping in the next few months, leaving plenty more to go. Let me preface this entire re-review with some simple facts. This game is tough. I am not a sweaty gamer. While yes, this game makes me sweat, I just lack the skill to call myself anything remotely close to a pro. Anyway, I started playing weekly for 2 to 4 hours with my cousins for about 3 months at the tail end of R6 or Rundown 6. It took a few weeks for me to get my bearings and get into a bit of a rhythm with the mechanics and the difficulty. We honestly didn't even finish all the expeditions before R7 dropped, introducing a lovely gallery of fresh hell in the form of new missions. As of recording this, we have only completed 8 expeditions out of 10. So bringing back the old rundowns with a twist is adding a lot of content to the game for those who haven't been following since its early days, and still providing a somewhat fresh and perhaps more refined experience to those who have been around since day one. So again, with my experience playing for a few precious hours each week, it can sometimes take us several weeks of trial and error getting to the end of one expedition. And I love that. The difficulty of this game is one of its strong points. Each mission, and in some cases each room, present creative new challenges that can really push the player to the limit. It kind of harkens back to the feeling of accomplishments when you finally beat the Water Temple for the first time in Ocarina. Or on the harsher end of the scale, the first time you get through Blighttown, or better yet, manage to bring down Ornstein and Smough in Dark Souls. At least for a lot of us, it's a matter of getting beat down and having to approach the situation at a different angle. In this case, unless you've got a recent checkpoint, losing could mean forfeiting an entire mission for you and your fellow inmates. And with enemy and some item placement being somewhat randomized, you don't just rinse and repeat when you relaunch every time. Speaking of Dark Souls, this game has a similar and very interesting way of telling you a story while leaving a ton of background info and lore buried for those who wish to seek it. You'll find as you progress through rundowns, much of the base story is told through voice lines, spoken to the characters via a PA system and recordings that tend to give a basic outline of what is happening and why you are here. The real meat and potatoes lies within in-game text logs that can be found by listing logs and reading on the terminals you find in missions. This is complemented by an actual website that keeps an archive dating back to the first rundown. I'll leave a link to Santonian Industries, the name of this database, down in the description. The site itself, without spoiling it, is very lore friendly. This brings me back to a point I made in our original video about the consoles in G.T.F.O. These goddamn consoles are a massively successful mechanic designed not only to progress missions, obviously, but to fully immerse the player into the dark, dank, high-risk world that 10 Chambers has sculpted. You can use them to better prepare yourself by seeking out, listing, and even pinging nearby items like medpacks, ammo, and tool refill. On the other hand, there are many situations where you'll be taking fire while your teammates frantically scream passwords at you, as they desperately hold off waves of oncoming monstrosities. The latter being only one example of the high-intensity moments where you will need team members with steady hands and a calm, collected mind, typing away carefully to lower an alarm or to open the door to a swift extraction. Something that I find really interesting with each update is the attention to detail in creating new and unique experiences with enemies, whether it be the introduction of a new grotesque monster with horrifying abilities or throwing in combinations of old enemies to challenge you in ways that have you shitting yourself all the way back to the drawing board. Seriously, some of these combinations are madness, and when combined with certain environmental factors, can lead to some very hairy situations. Take for instance the Scout. These creepy bastards wander around in a somewhat random pattern, occasionally stopping to unleash a slew of tendrils that, if touching a player, will force the Scout into a temporarily invulnerable state where it summons a bunch of its friends. Now on their own, you learn pretty quickly to be quick and agile and nail them in the head at the right time, significantly reducing their threat to your run. Throw 3 of these bad boys in a room with some varying sleeping enemies and maybe some fog, suddenly you've got to swap speed for precision and cautionary stealth. When it comes to strategy, there's a big focus on stealth, that's for sure. There simply isn't enough ammunition to fight everything, and same goes for health when you foolishly decided to fight everything in the room. Of course, combat is inevitable in some situations, such as security doors where you've got to hold off waves while completing moving scans, or special events where you've got to hold out or move to another part of the map, or hell, maybe one of your teammates missed an enemy and hit the wall, alerting the room you were adeptly assassinating your way through. Shit happens. Shit happens often. Which is why planning your approach and calling your shots is so important.
Alerts them if they're in that like first pulse stage then.
Because there's 1, 2, 3. I can see at least 3 of them.
Oh my god. Guys, I am so sorry.
Because ammo is so often scarce, you generally want to eliminate as many threats as possible silently. If things go south, have a fallback room or at least an easily defendable area. When it does come time to go loud, as it were, treat every bullet as if it were your last. There's nothing worse than hearing another wave spawn a room away and hearing the click of your last magazine running empty. Let me just point out, it's a nice touch that the empty magazines stay persistent. Where was I? Oh yeah, keep that gun loaded and make each shot count. I'd even go so far as to say try different guns out. There's a decent variety with various pros and cons to each, whether it be a thermal scope on the precision rifle or the sheer devastation and firepower of the choke mod shotgun, which holds very limited ammo for good reason. There's something for almost every style, except of course, true to its name, spray and spray. Don't do that. It won't help you or your teammates. The right weapon combo in tandem with well-chosen tools can be the edge you need to overcome almost any obstacle in this game. So you've got your melee weapon, your 2 guns, main and special, your supply slot for medkits, ammo, etc. Then you've got 3 types of tools to help you in this complex. Your chosen tool, C-foam launcher, mine deployer, bioscanner, and turrets. This is what's fulfilled using tool packs. Then you have your consumable tools, which include mines, C-foam grenades, stealth-friendly glow sticks, and lock melters. And syringes, which give special effects like melee strength increases. Last of all, you have a tool often overlooked in the beginning: doors. Properly using doors can be a very simple solution to a big problem in some cases. In combination with mines and precious time-buying C-foam, entire waves can be completely trash-canned in a matter of seconds. Without diving too deep into it, always keep an awareness of closable doors around you and plan accordingly. When the sleepers break on through to the other side, they could be met with a hail of frantic gunfire, with half of them squeezing by, or boom, problem solved. The setting of the game within the complex pits you against a diverse set of environments. Not every expedition is similar to the last, whether it be vertical room layouts of winding staircases, and large chambers, or tight corridors filled with sleepers. Each rundown seems hellbent on creating a variety of settings to keep things fresh, and when all else fails, there are certain other factors that can come into play, like the dreaded fog. Or hell, in some cases, like they forgot to pay the power bill and you and the team end up running around in the dark for an hour. Once again, I'm waiting to finish R7 before delving into the resurrected previous rundowns, but I'm looking forward to going through the older expeditions and seeing the previous settings and various situations that unfold within them. Almost as excited to see what the devs are cooking up for an eventual R8 one day, because I personally really enjoy the dedication and the creativity they put into each aspect of the game. From what I've gathered online, it would seem that the devs have hinted that the story may be coming to a close in the nearest future, which has led many to believe that Rundown 8 could be the last main entry going forward. But only time will tell. Plus, we've still got 4 more previous rundowns to see make a comeback. Anyway, if you check out one of 10 Chambers' streams, it becomes quite obvious that this game was conceived genuinely as not just a product, but a game that they wanted to play themselves. In my experience, they seem engaged with the fanbase and adamant about constantly improving their game. Now, of course, no game is flawless, and while I tend to focus mostly on the positives in games and take no joy or fulfillment from zeroing in on every scratch or dent in most media, this video would be pointless if I did not bring up some of those flaws. While the integrated matchmaking has improved, it would seem players still prefer to the old workaround of finding games and teammates through the G.T.F.O Discord, which really isn't a problem. That and the bots are improving and making the game more playable with an incomplete team. As this was one of the most common issues people had with the game, it is good to see that it is being addressed and that there are alternatives to the work-in-progress matchmaking. There are options. In my personal experience, the group that got me into it, Play Weekly, I wanted to play more, and so I introduced it to some friends who I thought would like it, including the lads here at Big Dork Energy, so that I could not only share the experience, but also get more of a chance to play more with people I already knew. For the most part, I believe everyone's had a good, albeit stressful, time with it. Speaking of stress, there's nothing worse than getting to a major milestone in an expedition only to accidentally lock yourself out of completion by placing the carried objective too close to a door and it becoming non-interactive. Or holding an objective during a checkpoint scan only to find it is now fused to your hands and you cannot put it down without having to have the aforementioned holder quit the game entirely and drop back in. There are glitches in this game. In some rare cases, game-breaking glitches, but there are also glitches that don't happen every time, which makes them incredibly difficult to fix in the case of the 2 big ones I just mentioned. The devs are aware and are trying, but there's not really much they can do unless they find the reason. There are the odd graphical bugs, which are few and far between and usually only last a few seconds. You might pass through a door and suddenly the world disappears for just a split second. You have a little bit of a, was that me or the game? The AI can bug out a little bit sometimes, or you might notice the odd enemy doing something out of the ordinary, but in most cases I'd just say there are once again little scratches and dents. I mentioned it before, and this isn't really a flaw, but as this video is intended to help you decide whether this game is a right fit, one does not simply walk into the combat. It is exactly that. Complex. Teamwork is a requirement, and the game itself is difficult. Very difficult for a casual like myself. I play games when I have time, which between family, a full-time job, and editing is not much. So I'm not getting sweaty at anything anytime soon. G.T.F.O is challenging and only gets more so as you go deeper. And if that doesn't float your boat, then I would say, hey, maybe it's not for you. I find that challenge leads to a massive rush of endorphins when you finally reach the end of an expedition, but the journey to that end can be harrowing. Stakes can feel high, and that's not a thing everybody is down for. All in all, I take a lot of enjoyment out of this game after playing for a full year, as Steam made me aware. Of any game I've played this year, it's actually my most consistent. If you check out our playthrough, you'll see that we had an absolute shit ton of fun playing through the first few expeditions. By the way, we do look forward to eventually retrying the dreaded R7D1 sometime in the new year, and perhaps continuing the series. Now, hopefully this video has served a purpose in bringing more people towards a severely underrated game, at least in my opinion. I hope you enjoyed. Once again, I'm Nitro, and this is Big Dork Energy.